today, so Sundays are my free days. Um,
Yeah, I hear you on that. Well, yeah, I
yeah.
guess it kind of works out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. All right, so we are live. We can basically kind of start from here. And all right, so thank you for hopping on, Arthur or Wuju Senshi, right?
Yeah, you can call me Arthur, but yeah, Wuju Senshi is like my online alias, as you know.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. I wanted to ask first off, like, what do you do? Let's talk a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your background? How long you've been streaming, gaming, that kind of stuff.
For sure. So, um, I'll say my name's Arthur again. I'm a first year medical student at USC Keck. Um, and let's see, so I live in LA right now and doing all this medical stuff during the pandemic. It's exciting. Well, I should say, an interesting time, but it's still an exciting thing nonetheless to be a medical student, even in spite of the circumstances. I've been primarily a League of Legends gamer, in addition to all of the pre-med grinding and now med school med student grinding for years now since I started playing in season 4, and that's been like my main game. It's been something that I invested a lot of time to over the years, even as a college student. And I started streaming, as I told Dr. Sai, if I could call you that, or Jordan, or
Yeah,
whatever you.
either way.
Yeah, so as I told Dr. Sai a moment ago, I started streaming about 2.5 years ago. I am a Master Yi one trick in League of Legends, which is something that I guess a lot of people are surprised to hear. I guess when they, think about like how they envision a lot of Master Yi players, and then they meet me. I think there's like certain ideas or like things in their head about how Master Yi players are that seems to, you know, differ from how I am. So I guess that's always been something that's been interesting. And yeah, so for 2.5 years, been streaming just in my solo queue games and NA, playing in anywhere from like Diamond to Grandmaster. Season 9, I peaked at a 300 LP in Grandmaster, just one tricking Master Yi. And yeah, let's see what else is there to say. So I guess yeah, I mean that's kind of the intro.
All right, awesome. So, what year med student are you?
A first year.
First year. Okay, so it's a huge transition. I'm sure you've experienced, and for those that don't know, going from undergrad to med school is possibly one of the largest jumps you'll make in academia. Like,
Yeah, I really I learned that firsthand.
and then how long have you been playing League again?
So I started season 4, so it's
Season
been
four.
about,
Okay.
so season 11. That's seven
Okay.
years.
And what
It's a long
what?
time. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. What drew you to Master Yi?
So let's see. I think when I first started playing League of Legends, I was a Lee Sin one trick. I guess I'm the kind of person, and this goes beyond League as well. I just love to one trick things. I love to invest all my time into something in particular and be really good at that particular aspect
Hmm.
of whatever that might be. And again, this applies to things outside of League. And I almost enjoy that aspect of being so good at just one thing and actually kind of awful at the rest of it, or like
Yeah.
at other aspects. And for whatever reason, I'm someone who's really drawn to like one tricking and specialization. And so when I started, I was a Lee in one trick instead,
Hmm.
back when I was like in silver. And I think it started in season 5 when I started one trick Yi. It was really just at first, it started up as I picked up Yi just as a strategy to kind of climb through low elo faster,
Hmm.
because I found it to be really effective in low elo. As
Hmm.
most people know, that kind of champion is really effective in those lower tiers of play. Um, but I found that I think a lot of like the themes surrounding Master Yi as a champion and just like his his lore, his play style, just everything about him was like I just found it so fun and almost like one of the best ways to get like what's the word? Like the like I don't know if cathartic is the right word. That's probably a little bit too emotional. But basically like the like sad okay, I'll say the satisfaction. The satisfaction I got out of League I think was most elevated when I was playing Yi. You
Interesting.
know, getting like pentakills, carrying the team,
Yeah.
being kind of like the star of the show. I think at that in my early days of like when I started to pick up Yi as my main champ, that's what initially drew me to him. And then later on down the line, I started to invest a lot of time into playing Yi. I realized that there's not many players in high elo that play Yi at
Yeah.
at a high level.
Yeah.
He's not a champion that's really considered to be viable in high elo, and I totally understand why. But I think that I'm also someone who's very much drawn to challenges, things that are like, you're not supposed to be able to do that, but I want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another reason that further pushed me to want to really hardcore one tricky and learn how to make him work in high elo, because I just loved the champion overall and I really enjoyed playing him. And I thought it would be really fulfilling to be able to make that kind of like my thing in my like, as like, that's what I contribute to the League of Legends scene. That's what I'd be all about,
Yeah.
is making Yi one trick or making Yi one tricking work in high elo. So that
You
was a
know,
really fun process for me.
that's awesome. That's awesome. You're actually the second person I met who is a Yi one trick in high elo.
Really?
Yeah, so I actually talked with another player. He's in Latin America, but he's
Oh,
a,
Danny.
yeah, yeah. So he's a really he's a challenger level Yi player, which is actually insane
Yeah.
when you think
I
about it.
did the
Because
podcast with him. I told you
oh,
about it,
okay, that
right?
was him.
He's
Yeah,
the other E player I talked about.
yeah. It's actually really funny. So something I chatted with him about was like, well, why is Yi not playable in high elo? He's like, well, it's just easy counters in theory, right? So then your counter has to be you have to play it better than someone can just hard CC you and delete you. So. And I think we all know Yi's basically that ticking time bomb. Like you let him get to 6 items and it's over. Like there's just, he
In
will
theory, yeah.
he will 1v5 the entire team. So and I've been on the receiving end of that plenty of times. I'll say that Yi's probably my most banned champion actually because
I totally understand. No flame, no hard feelings. I don't even blame you. I hate playing against E myself. That's why I play it.
yeah I'm in pretty low elo, so I just hit silver 4. But it's absolutely because. Even if I know how to counter Yi and I can play well against Yi, if Yi just decides, I'm going to avoid that lane and go farm the other lanes for like, 7 or 8 kills, he'll just like come back and you just can't stop him. So that's awesome. I really like that Yi basically represents for you kind of the idea of perfecting one thing, or one tricking in general is basically perfecting one aspect of the game and how you play the game. And do you feel like that? I mean, you said that's kind of why you approached Yi or one tricking itself, but do you feel like that's kind of also how you approach your academic standing and like how you pursue medicine and all that?
Yes. So as I said, I feel like this whole one tricking aspect is something that kind of pervades other. That's not a word for this. Yeah, it's just something that like kind of is involved in other aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have OCD, like actual clinically diagnosed OCD.
Okay.
I am even taking a medication for it right now. And so, I think that kind of is related to like my desire to one trick or like get really good at one particular thing and specialize. And so, yeah, that does affect very much how I approach academics. For example, I'm not sure. Sorry if I want to ask this really quick,
Yeah.
but you have what is your background? Are you
Yeah.
a physician?
No, no, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and
Okay, okay.
yeah, board certified orthopedic clinical specialist. So I don't go to med school. PT school is 3 years, and it's an expedited like 3 years. So you never get a break. It's just 3 constant years.
Gotcha.
But then we get out with a doctorate. So it's not an MD, but no,
Gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that. So I don't know if this is something that people in your program used a lot, but you're familiar with a program called Anki?
No.
Anki, it's like this flashcard application basically that pretty much all medical students across the country, and I'm not sponsored or anything by the way. I don't know if I need to clarify that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a pretty much like the godsend of vast majority of medical students across the U.S. as
Okay.
far as I know. And it's a flashcard app that medical students use for basically all of their studying, including for their classes, for their board exams,
Mhm.
for everything. It's like their life basically.
It's
They'll
better
put their
than
lives
it's better than Quizlet.
it's similar to Quizlet, but I think
Okay.
it's actually much better in a lot of ways. So, I mean,
Okay.
I'll just say it's something that I think if you're really interested in learning a language or just learning a lot of information like in medical school, anything
Mhm.
like that, Anki's great for that. So going back to the topic we were talking about, I'm someone that like a desire to one trick and really specialize in something. When I learned about Anki and how it was kind of just this really useful tool for studying medical school, I wanted to be like an Anki one trick, you could say.
Okay.
I wanted to really learn well how to use this program, really like personalize and optimize that, like the way I use the program in a way that's best for me and my learning style, and basically just do that. I was not interested in like using a lot of other resources. I mean, even now I realize that it's probably important to do a little bit of that, so I'm trying to make myself not one trick too hard, just like how you don't want to one trick E too hard in League because you'll just get banned out, etc. Like you need to have a certain balance of one tricking when it comes to what's realistic. You can't one trick all the time.
Right.
But I think it's been very helpful overall, and I think I've gotten a lot out of just being this kind of quote unquote Anki one trick by like learning how to really use the program, sticking to that every day, and just having like I know that if I just do lots of Anki every day, that's gonna kind of help me get through med school.
Yeah.
So that's just something that's been working for me so far, I think.
Great, great. And then do you have a direction in medicine that you want to go?
Mm, yeah. So it is. I am a first year, so granted, there's a lot of things that could change. When I came into medical school, I was interested, and I mean, I still am interested in pursuing primary care. So I was thinking about things like family medicine or med peds, which is a mixture of like for I mean, I guess it's like for viewers who might not know, you might already know this. It's a mixture between being an internist and a pediatrician. So you basically get to work with adults and um, younger people. So I thought that would be something that'd be rewarding. Something in the primary care field is overall what I'm thinking about, but I realized that could change. When I was going through college and growing up, I wanted to be a radiologist because my dad was a radiologist.
Okay.
But I think I've since shifted my focus more towards primary care. But who
Awesome.
knows? Might shift some more.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. So you come from a medical background already in your family. So do you feel like that kind of influenced your decision making, or was something like it was just something inspiring for you? Do you feel like your parents kind of pushed you into medicine, or do you feel like it was more a decision you made?
Yeah, it's a good point. I know there's lots of pre-meds that were very much pushed into at least, a good part of why they're there was a result of being pushed.
Hmm.
Maybe if not all of it, but at least a little bit. That's a common thing for people who go down the path of medicine. For me, it was my dad was definitely very much an inspiration. He did, I think, encourage me to explore medicine, but he very quickly became kind of the parent that said, you don't have to do medicine. In fact, I don't know if I even recommend it because it's just such a hard, long path that takes a lot of time
Hmm.
and is a lot of investment, a lot of money, a lot of things from you, and over the course of your life, it just takes a lot of investment to like go down that path, and you have to really want it you have to really want it, not because anyone pushed you if you want to go down that path.
Yeah.
And I ultimately decided that this really was the only thing I could really see myself doing and getting the most enjoyment out of. Again, just like back to the one tricking thing, from a very early age, I fell in love with the idea of becoming a doctor and being this kind of like, interdisciplinary person who can use a lot of different skills and, subdisciplines and applied in a way that's like just feels so fulfilling and meaningful. I wanted to one trick medicine from a very early point in life, and yeah, so that's part of what kind of made me feel self motivated. And my parents, even my dad was saying, "You don't have to do this. In fact, I don't even know if you should. It's a lot of investment." In spite of all that, I really wanted to go for it, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an investment in both time, money, blood, sweat, and tears. Like nobody, every med student I've ever talked to. So I went to USC as well. We'll go into that little background. So I've
Yeah,
worked
yeah,
actually
for
pretty
sure.
closely with USC's med program as well. Just students. I've had patients who were actually medical students when I was at the faculty practice there when I was a student. And the one thing that they've all said is like you don't get into that field by wanting the end result. You can't just be like, oh, I want to be a doctor because they make a lot of money and it sounds cool. Like you will not
Yeah.
survive. Like it demands so much out of you that you really have to actually enjoy the process of learning the information. And it's a lot of information. Like you're expected to know a ton about the human body, which is a good thing. I think, overall it's a good thing. It weeds out the people that probably don't deserve to be medical students. um,
Ideally, yeah.
but no, that's great. I think that there's a lot of interesting parallels there with getting to high elo in any game and actually pursuing something academically. It's a process of learning. And I think league specifically, actually that's what I got me into league, is just I'm addicted to feeling like I'm mastering something at a tangible way.
Oh,
And league,
definitely, yeah.
it's like all of a sudden one day you're like thinking about stuff. You're like, wait, I'm thinking about this game in a completely different level. I'm thinking about itemization and like lane states and all that. When it was like 6 months ago, I was like, all right. Do I need to trade here or
Yeah.
like do I win this one on one? I don't know.
I
Um,
remember that those early
yeah.
days of the league. I was in that same boat. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun. So I think it's really cool. In terms of medical, like you talked about your dad being a radiologist, and you're thinking about getting into general practice. I think the biggest difference between those two specialties for me is the amount of patient interaction that you get. Um,
Mhm.
so for me, the one thing I really love about my job is that I spend a lot of time with people. Like physical therapists get to spend on average, 30 to 60 minutes with their patient, which is unheard of in, being a physician. Like,
That's on the higher end for a lot of health practitioners. Yeah.
yeah, unless you're concierge or whatever. But like, yeah, it's really, really hard to get that much patient interaction time. Do you enjoy that process or more of the analytical, like a radiologist be like, oh, I'm going to look at these images, do a differential diagnosis, figure out what's going on, and then interact with the patient?
Yeah. So again, it's I keep saying this, but yeah, it's early. So
Hmm.
in my kind of path, career, whatever, and things could change. But I think the way I feel about the situation right now is that patient interaction is the most important and fulfilling part of medicine for me. Is that
Yeah.
human aspect of feeling like I'm really there for someone. I'm, there to listen. I'm there to do everything I possibly can to take care of them. Really make them feel like I am there for them.
Hmm.
That's, I think, an aspect of medicine that really just gets me going,
Yeah.
being like almost like a hero for these people, and or for patients that, or just people that are in a time of need.
Right.
And I think the patient interaction aspect of that is really essential. And I think this is part of what made me want to move, away from my interest in radiology became more, not that I was less interested in radiology, but more that I became more interested in primary care, because it's more of like an intimate interaction with your patients. You're more like, it's almost like being like a parent or a family member, or like a friend,
Yeah.
that's there for them. I think that vibes a little bit more with me. And so I really enjoy the analytical aspect of medicine. I think that's what initially drew me to something like radiology, is because you're like solving puzzles, like you're
Hmm.
talking about trying to figure out the differential diagnosis based off the information presented to you. I love puzzles and kind of like you like apply the things I learned in those kind of ways.
Hmm.
But yeah, what I eventually realized down the line is that in spite of that, the most important thing to me is that human aspect of medicine. And I would love to do something where I can really utilize both
Yeah.
aspects, analytical and the human interaction and patient interaction part. But that's probably the more important one, is the patient interaction for
That's
me.
great. That's a great mentality. And I think that's something that I'm really, really glad that medical schools are really pushing that more so now. Because I know in the past I've worked with physicians who were not as keen on the human interaction part. They're like, hey, you got cancer. Like, what? You can't just say
Yeah,
that.
that sucks, bro.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
this is how much time you have left. I'm like, what? No. But I have noticed that younger clinicians, younger physicians are starting to move more towards that holistic human approach. And I think that's really important. Is you have to reassure your patients. You have to let them know that, hey, I'm here to help you. We're part of a team. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to guide you. And then that kind of creates that environment where the patient feels like you're helping them and they're helping you and you're working together. Because like in my field too, none of my patients get better because of what I do. They get better because of what they do. Right. So I'm just there to guide them. And
Yeah,
I
no.
tell them all the time, like, this isn't going to work if you don't work with me because, we're actually a team on this. I can't do my job and you won't get better. So um, I think it's really, really cool that you're already approaching with that mindset. That's definitely the right way to go. And then let's talk a little bit. So for maybe the viewers who don't know as much about med school, like what's your program look like? Like what's this semester for you?
Sure. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the interview, it is not quite the same as it normally would be, as
Hmm.
I'm sure not that's not a surprise to anyone. Nowadays, it's a little bit different because of quarantine and the pandemic situation. But my program is, so I guess, how does it what does med school look like? I guess
Yeah.
in those 4 years. So a lot of med school programs will have 2 years of didactic, which is just like basically lectures. You're going to be learning kind of like in a way similar, like a similar format as you may have learned college courses, with like tests, lectures, some labs. And then the second half of medical school, the next 2 years will be more clinical experiences. So yeah, like working in the hospital as basically like kind of an intern, and going through different rotations in different fields, like gynecology or cardiology or whatever. USC is a little bit different, and it's I mean it's similar but a little bit different. So it's actually a year and a half of this didactic lecture format, and then you jump into the latter half of your second year, right into the clinical experiences. And I think that's something I really enjoy because like I said, I'm all about that patient interaction, the clinical experience,
Yep.
the human aspect of medicine. I'm ready to jump into that, as soon as I can.
Yep.
And so, yeah, what that looks like during the first, part of medical school where you're just studying a lot of lectures and taking a lot of tests. And there's some programs like USC will give you a little bit of like clinical experiences along the way.
Hmm.
Like USC's program has a once a week like clinical class where we get to practice like talking with patients, and sometimes we get to go into the hospital if pandemic situations is not going to get in the way of that. But yeah, in spite of that, it's primarily lecture and studying and taking tests.
Great.
um, and what that looks like is studying all these different topics, everything from anatomy to pharmacology to microbiology to pathology, just like, yeah, all that. And then we take tests on all of that like every couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of what that looks like. I guess I don't know if I'm also, hopefully
Yeah.
I'm answering your question, not
Yeah.
rambling
No,
here.
I was like, so how many units are you in this first semester?
Right. So it's a 16 unit class. I think like basically medical school is just one class. It's not
Right.
like college where you like enroll in different classes. It's like
Mhm.
you just enroll in this one class that's 16 units.
Yeah.
And then like I said, it covers all the different topics,
I
I
got
guess.
it. Got it. And then you guys you get anatomy and all that stuff first year.
Yeah, first year we cover things like anatomy, histology, biochemistry, just like pretty much every topic you can think of
Okay.
actually. Aside from I think things like cardiology, those are like there are a few subjects like that that are pretty much reserved mostly for second year. A
What?
lot of the
Yeah.
topics we will hit
What's
first
what's
year.
the hardest class for you right now?
So right now I'm in my neuro unit, so we're just studying
Oh
all things
gosh.
related to
Oh
neurology.
gosh.
So I guess like what's the hardest aspect of neuro for me right now? It's probably either pharmacology or pathology. I think memorizing all these drugs is actually something that's been like over the past couple months of med school I've had so far. That's definitely been a challenge for me, just memorizing all these different drugs and their names. For some reason,
Yeah.
that's something that's abstract and doesn't stick in my head, as well as some other
Well,
things.
because a lot of them are just made up, and you have to know the trade name and
Yeah,
the generic name, and
I know. Yeah, it's like it's just it
yeah,
really feels like I'm just memorizing a dictionary, whereas like
yeah.
other medical facts you can memorize and kind of make rhyme or reason sense of what you're learning about. But yeah, pharmacology just feels a little bit more like I don't even know what I'm learning, but I just have to cram it into my head.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
so we had a basic farm class as well in my program.
mhm.
And that was the hardest part for me was that I can't even prescribe medications. So I'm literally learning it just to understand the adverse effects that might happen. And
Oh
so
yeah.
it felt like such a waste of time, like knowing dosages and all this other stuff. Like I can't even give these. But
Yeah, I feel
it is important. Like, you get a patient and they're like, "Oh, I'm on this many grams of, whatever." And you have to understand like, "Oh, the big one was like gabapentin or something, right? Like, so if you know that, oh, if they're on this much, the wound healing is slower. Like, there's all these effects that you have to know. But it was always seemed very like pointless because I'm like, I can't even prescribe these. Like, and yet I have to spend hours of my day learning them.
yeah.
But then also, I think that by going through all this stuff, you'll also start determining like what you're actually good at. And I don't know in your case, but in PT and like my case, almost nobody is good at everything, right? You just can't be.
Mm,
So
yeah.
very, very early on, I realized I am so good at ortho and so terrible at neuro. I'm probably not going to be a neurologic specialist. I'm probably going to go the ortho route, which is kind of in line with what I wanted to do anyway. But do you see that starting to differentiate already in your first year with your classmates and all that?
Let's see. Do I? Hmm. Um. I guess I don't think so. I feel like in general, I'm just kind of like struggling with everything about as equally.
That's
Just
fair.
really trying to
That's
hang in
fair.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any like particular subject has emerged as like, oh, I'm really good at this, and I'm just god awful at this.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there are some subjects, like I said, are like definitely more challenging for me, like pharmacology, and then I can't remember what was the other thing I said. Well, anyway.
Well, yeah, you're saying neuropathology.
Oh, right, that's a pathology. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that pathology can be difficult for me
Yeah.
as well. I think pharmacology is actually probably the hardest subject for me right now. But
Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
there's some subjects that I struggle more with, but I don't know if there's any subject in particular that's emerged as like something I am really good at.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think all of it is just about as good as I think I would be at this point in my training, and Yeah, I mean, hopefully later down the line, I'll start to see things emerge more as like this is a kind of subject or subdiscipline I enjoy more and I'm better at. I
Cool.
think it would be good to have that emerge, but I don't think
Yeah.
it's emerged for me.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, it's good to be a generalist as long as you can, and then at some point you can kind of make a decision. That's actually the best. But
Mhm.
do you have any advice for maybe undergrad students who are, considering applying to med schools or trying to go that route?
Right. Oh man, do I have advice? Let's see. Um, I definitely could think of. I guess it's like this is the kind of thing where it's like it kind of reminds me when people ask me like any tips for climbing with Yi and Haila. You know, it's
Yeah.
like
Well, that was
I
gonna be my
like oh
next question.
yeah, yeah. So we can get into that in a second. But like, there's so many things I can teach someone. I feel like if they ask specific questions, when it comes to just general tips, sometimes I'm at a loss of like, what do I want to tell this person?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are. So I guess to answer your question about what is my general advice when it comes to like anyone who's interested in pursuing like medicine, maybe they're high school, college right now, or maybe they're interested in just pursuing like grad school in general. I guess like hmm I think a really important thing to do is to build good habits during college, or just build good habits during those like before grad school years. And that comes down to like, and I think a lot of pre-meds don't do this. And I think I was one of those students who did not really do this, but like take the time to really take care of yourself and be in touch with how you're feeling and like learning who you are as a person, how you study, what you need in life, what are the, like what makes you happy, things like that. Know, yeah, like the best way that you can be studying and productive and know that, and let's take the time to learn like I guess I'm trying to sorry, this is not coming out a way that's I miss making so much sense. I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. But hmm.
Well, it sounds like, it's similar to advice I've gotten from a lot of high elo league players as well. It's about like self awareness, right? Identifying
Hmm.
where you're weak. And you actually said that. You said, I can't give anyone advice unless I know where your strengths and weaknesses are. And
Yeah,
I think
self-awareness is a
that,
good word.
that's a really, really important takeaway. And that's something that I've had multiple students in the past as well, coming through the clinic. And that's something I try to stress to them early on is I don't really care about your actual skills right now. What I care about is you developing the ability to reflect and create self-awareness because
Yeah.
that more than anything is going to get you further in anything you try to do. Like being aware of where you're good, where you're not doing so good allows you to actually direct your training in a productive way. Someone who doesn't have self-awareness is just going to be like grinding in all these different directions and it never really goes anywhere, and you kind of feel like you're spinning in circles. So,
Yeah, that's what they call hard stuck when it comes to the league scene,
yeah.
right? So
Yep.
yeah, I think the way you put it was very. That's actually pretty much right what I was going for is self awareness. I think that's really important, and it should be not just like with your academics. It should be
Mhm.
also with like your personal life, your
Mhm.
social relationships, like just being very in touch with yourself and knowing like having like building a good foundation for yourself, these basic skills in studying and personal life and social skills and all of that, and just being aware of how you are as a person and like making sure that that is, I guess, cultivated, that you are kind of building yourself up into a holistically sound and like sound, what's the word, like you have a good foundation in like all different aspects of your life. I think that is one of the most important things to build going forwards, especially for people who are interested in medicine, because I think there are so many pre-meds who completely neglect themselves and their own like health,
Yeah.
well-being, mental health, all of that, and just like building good habits. Like they throw all that out the window and get so obsessed with just playing a game that
Yeah.
is trying to get into med school, trying to inflate numbers, trying to check off boxes, all that. And I definitely fell victim to that a lot of the time along
Yeah.
the way too. And late, like for example, in most of my pre-med school years, I was a crammer, a very much hardcore crammer,
Mhm.
and had horrible study habits. But I could get away with it in college. When I hit med school, that needed to change so fast and quickly, and it was a painful and miserable process.
Yep.
Lots of blood, sweat, and tears, as we mentioned before. And even now, I'm still struggling to break some of these bad habits. And I wish I had the better, like a more sound infrastructure and like just good habits in place, not in just terms of academics, but personal life and everything. That is so important to develop for anyone who wants to pursue medicine or anyone who wants to pursue any kind of like advanced technical field that involves a lot of investment, like whether it's law school, any kind of graduate school, professional training, PT, like anything
Yeah.
like that. You really need to have that foundation, or else it's going to be hard.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
my best
And
advice.
and I think that's a really good point that you touched on too, is that neglecting your own health for the expense of like, okay, well, I need to sacrifice everything to achieve this goal. I mean,
Yeah.
there are clear parallels there with gaming and
Uh-huh.
studying.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the amount of pros I've worked with who were just, like, oh, I thought neck pain and wrist pain, all this stuff is normal just because I grind 10 hours. I mean, that is normal if you grind 10 hours doing nothing else. Like, that's very normal, but it's also not ideal. Like, what can you do to minimize that? So, what are your kind of self care techniques? Like, what do you do to kind of maintain your own body's health while you're doing all this stuff? Because obviously, spending a lot of time online is essentially the same thing as playing games for, X number of hours.
Yeah, so let's see, the things that I do to take care of my health. So like I said, this was something that I'm working on right now even. I
Hmm.
had really horrible habits throughout college when it came to things like personal health and just all of that. And I've been trying to be much more cautious about that now. I'm still far from perfect, but it's kind of necessary for me to do that at this stage in life where I need to take good care of myself or else I'm just not going to make it.
Yeah.
That's the way medical school is and a lot of other like people in these kind of situations. It's the time to like grow up and really take good care of your body.
Yep.
And so I'm working on this now. I think the things that I'm really trying to focus on is eating 3 meals a day, and making sure that those meals are healthy, and actually well balanced with different like macronutrients and not too like carb heavy or too I don't know, just like I just don't want to put as much junk in my body like I would
Yeah.
in college. And then getting enough sleep. Oh, that's definitely been the biggest one. Like for me recently, is just realizing how important sleep is and how much that actually affects me. Like I knew it affected me before, but I really have a much deeper appreciation for how different it is when I get enough sleep and when I don't. Now that I'm like pushing my brain to its limits every day, trying to cram all this information in my head. I really notice the difference of when I am um, well rested and when I'm not. So getting enough sleep every day is the most important thing for me right now, which I think has improved a lot. So I'm really happy about that. I rarely get less than like 7 or 6, 7 hours of sleep. Most of the time, I get 8 hours.
Mhm.
So that's been something that was not the case for a
That
long
is
time, but
that is
now it
hard. That is an ideal that I don't even hit that. Like, I try
is.
so hard,
Yeah,
but
it
yeah.
is hard. I know exactly what that feels like. I really struggled with it for a long
Yeah.
time, but now it's a priority, and it's getting better. I think
Yeah.
one of the things I need to work on the most is exercise. I think
Hmm.
right now, like, and I guess it's harder with the situation now in the pandemic, right, to get outside. I walk my dog every day, and I'll sometimes go on bike rides or like hikes. I try to like use like excuses like seeing catching up with old friends, like let's go on a hike together. Use that as an excuse to like kill two birds with one stone, get
Hmm.
some like socializing in with some exercise, things like that. But I definitely acknowledge that I am not exercising enough right now, and I want to improve on that. I think that's the next kind of thing on my to-do list of like health goals that are important, and the ones that I'm lacking most in is this
Yeah.
like physical activity.
Absolutely, and that's actually kind of what I try to stress to people too. Is there's so much research out there now about how cardiovascular fitness directly translates to brain function and brain performance, and
Yeah.
all these things. Like, a lot of times, if you're trying to study for a test and you're just hitting that mental block, going for a 10-minute walk or a light run or something, and then coming back and resuming, you're gonna feel so much more apt to like actually make those breakthroughs.
I
You know,
should do that more. I should do 10-minute
well,
walks. You're right.
yeah, I think Steve Jobs was really famous for being that person who's like, okay, if he's in a meeting or they were stuck on a problem, he's like, all right, everyone go outside, we're gonna walk, and they'd walk around the parking lot, and by the time
Oh,
they
really? I
go,
didn't
yeah,
know about that.
this is the story I read, and like so when they go back up, like usually they would find some solution, because there's a lot of stuff about how doing a motor task, doing some sort of physical activity, actually helps your brain stop, I guess, pushing into the same area over and over, and it kind of it changes your actual mental activity to maybe give you a better route, or you can think outside the box a little bit more easily. There's also a lot of research that just improving cardiovascular fitness can improve reaction time, cognitive ability, all that stuff. We kind of already established that, but yeah, and I think do you have any questions on what's the best way to start a physical regimen or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm talking to a physical therapist right now. Maybe it's a chance for me to think about this. So, I guess Yeah, I feel like I'm someone who has like a lot on my plate already, and I don't want to add something that feels like a really big extra administrative burden,
Hmm.
which is why it's taking me this long to address things in my health, and like physical fitness has been like the one that I think has taken the longest for me to address. Like, so I guess what is a good way for me to just incorporate this into my life in a way that doesn't feel like it's taking too much time, or doesn't feel burdensome, or doesn't feel like something I have to like remember to do every day. I don't know, like something that makes it feel like less of a burden mentally, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something that I'm very, very aware of because, the population that I work with, gamers, they don't want to suddenly add a 2 hour workout into their day. Like, unless they're on a
Yeah.
pro team that forces them to do that, they're just not going to do it. So, what I try to stress is creating better habits, right? So, instead of thinking of certain things as, oh, this is an exercise program I have to do, what I encourage is like habit formation. So, if you're studying every hour, you should just get up and go get some water, right? That act alone will take you out of the situation, the environment that you're currently in. You'll get water, which is also good for you, and then also it gets you just up and walking, which can kind of stimulate that idea of like, okay, your brain is gonna leave this task for a moment and then come back to it. That mental refresh helps a lot, and same thing I tell league players. In between games, go do something else. Don't just queue up for your next game, even if you won. Like I've had games where actually, the reverse of tilt is where you just straight crushed a game
I
and
know
you
about
go
this.
and you go into your next game like, I am so good, I'm gonna dominate, and then you realize that the other enemy jungler or whatever is like just happens to be in a higher elo than you, just like invades you level 1 and stomps you, and you're like, and then you're completely tilted the other way, like, I'm trash, like I was so bad. And so I
It's
think,
all too relatable. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like about balancing the highs and balancing the lows. And I think that by creating good habits, you can actually make that an easier part of your routine rather than setting aside an hour that you have to spend on exercise. So what I try to encourage people to do is regular stretch breaks. There's some easy stretches that are directly related to being in a computer position all day. So a lot of like extensor stretches for the wrist. I do postural exercises. Yeah, so fingers down, you're gonna pull lightly on the knuckles, and that's gonna give you a nice stretch of the extensor tendons. This
Oh yeah,
one's
that's tense.
Yeah, this one's huge for league players, mostly because of that click rate.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and for you, since you're a master Yi one trick, I mean, your Q button is probably worn out. So
My cue button is broken. My right click button is also broken.
yeah. And then the other thing would be postural exercises. So because when you're in a computer, you're usually spending a lot of time with your shoulders forward, kind of hunched over. The exercises you want to break up those activities with in between are usually these kinds of things where you're reversing those positions. Your shoulders are going back, you're stretching the chest open, you're trying to squeeze the shoulder blades. What I like to encourage people to do is actually extend their back in the chair so they're trying to get their chest up towards the ceiling.
I
Um,
see. Okay,
yeah,
that's not true.
you might get some pops and cracks. It's actually a good thing, but it reverses the positions that you spend a lot of time in. And if there's one thing we know actually in the research from physical therapy now, it's not that there's any good posture. Good posture is ideal and it's nice for reducing stress. But if I were to have you sit in perfect posture for 2 hours, at the end of that, you're going to feel pretty miserable. Like your back is going to be sore. Everything is going to feel really stiff and tight. What they found is actually better is constant or regular changes of position. So if you slouch for 3 hours, you're not going to feel good. If you sit in perfect posture for 3 hours, you're not going to feel good. So what we have to do is every so often in between, we change between those positions. You know?
That's so interesting because
Yeah.
it's funny because I think I do this kind of naturally, and I
Yep.
always thought it was like, oh, but I shouldn't be like I should just maintain good posture. Part of the back of my head, I'm like thinking that
Yep.
kind of thing. But at
Yep.
the same time, I always naturally fall into this habit, just like yeah, sometimes I'll lean back, sometimes I'll slouch forwards, and just like kind of change positions a lot of the time. It's what always seems to like reduce the wear and tear feeling on my body, and I guess
Exactly.
the research supports that.
It
That it
does. It does. Your joints and your synovial joints, which are all the little sacs inside the joints, which have nutrients in them, they get more nutrients by movement, right? You need movement, and the human body is designed around movement. If you've never moved, and we see this in the hospital, unfortunately, all the time, everything breaks down. You have to have a mechanical motion of fluid and tissue and nutrient exchange in order to create a normal functioning body. So yeah, changes of position are really, really good. There's also the idea that your body will any position you're in, your body is slowly accumulating stress at that position. And so what you do is you tend to shift and you take stress off of it. you shift again. And we see this unfortunately in stroke patients, right? Or people who have a loss of sensation. If they've had a paraplegia or something like that, right? A spinal cord injury. This is why pressure injuries develop, is because they lose the ability to sense pain. And so they never start shifting those positions, and that eventually breaks down the tissue and causes actually serious injuries. So on a lesser scale, if you're ignoring pain, you're also starting to ramp that irritation level up higher and higher. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, my back is killing me. Like, why? It's because you've been straight ignoring it, what it's trying to tell you for hours. It's been telling you, I need to get up and move around a little bit. And I think as a society, we've gotten really good at shutting down our awareness of what our body's telling us.
That's so true. Yeah.
So yeah, it is important. But I mean, again, it is just creating easy habits. The easiest thing for me is thinking of set miles or time stamps in your life. So usually if I'm studying, which I absolutely hate, it will be a time-based thing. Like I will study really hard for 1 hour. And after that 1 hour, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go get something to eat and I'm going to come back. You have to give your mind breaks. You have to give your body breaks. And then those milestones can then translate into easy habits that are easily repeatable and doesn't feel like work. And then so even with gaming, right? Like in League, it's easy because every game is about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Each of those blocks is a very, very distinct cutoff time that you can like, okay, instead of queuing up right away and be like, okay, go next, I'm going to just get up for like 30 seconds. And a lot of times that 30 seconds can completely reset your mental, can reset your body. If you do 30 seconds of just stretching and walking and then come back, it's almost like you're playing your first game again. And, I almost feel like, my first game's never my best game, but like the second game for sure, you're warmed up and, you're in a hopefully still a healthy mental place. That's usually when you're playing the best. Your 8th game in the day is never, ever your best. Like, it's like you're just fatigued. Everything is tired. And depending on how the previous 7 games went, you might not even really want to play. You're just like, I need to save my LP today.
Guilt queuing is what they call it.
Yeah. And that's definitely happened. I do that fairly frequently. I try to, at least I try to switch to a norm or something like that where the stakes are lower, I guess, even though the stakes are non-existent anyway, really. But yeah, it's like creating new habits is really, really good. And having a dog is actually great. I have a dog and that's like guaranteed I have to walk a few times a day no matter what now, just because he needs to walk. So I think that's another way that you create an extrinsic goal that you have to achieve that actually helps you intrinsically.
Yeah, having a dog actually has been something that's helped me in so many different ways that I never would have thought it would. Like surviving med school and just taking care of myself, like forced me to go outside, like, the like mental health boost I get from it. Yeah, having my dog, who's a Shiba Inu, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just like.
I have a Shiba.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah.
What color is your Shiba?
He's sesame and white.
Sesame and white. Okay.
Yeah.
Mine's like we call her Kuri, Kuri, which means water chestnut in Japanese. So
okay.
It's because she's like the color of like a water chestnut.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it might be similar color to yours.
Yeah. He's got that like orangish brown.
Okay, that is basically similar to mine. Yeah.
His name's Kumi. That's hilarious.
Wow. So yeah.
we basically have the same dog. Awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, that's been like a boost in so many different ways. Like you said, it just makes me go outside, like have this goal that I have to achieve. I have to take her out, or she's gonna pee in the house. So that makes me go outside. And if it weren't for that, I don't know how I would get outside every day, which I want to do for my health because I feel like always re-energized. And it's like stupid because I feel like I know that it's so good for me whenever I just get up and walk around, but I don't do it as often as I should. And like hearing you talk about like how just getting up for 30 seconds could like mental reset you. It's like, I believe that because I feel like I experience that whenever it happens to me for whatever reason. If I get up and come back like for 30 seconds to go get more water or something, like I feel that re-energized feeling and like reset feeling, but I don't do it more often.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think it's also tough being a healthcare provider because there's so many things that we actually know, like, right. I know cognitively that these things are things I should do. I tell people this all the time. I have patients that constantly harping on them, like, you need to change your diet. And then I immediately go and eat like 3 tubs of ice cream or something. I'll eat a pizza. But at the same time, it's also because I almost feel like in some points, because you know it it's also hard to not judge yourself really, really badly for that. You know, it's almost easier if you're not in a field that your job is to basically educate people on this stuff. Sometimes if you fail to meet those expectations yourself, it's really hard not to beat yourself up a little bit more because you're like, man, I shouldn't have this injury or I shouldn't have this issue, you know? Um,
Yeah. Like you can't
so
even enjoy a cup of ice cream because it's like, man, I'm so
yeah,
bad. I know how bad
you
the ice
feel,
I need
well,
to
you
do.
feel like a hypocrite, right?
Yeah, yeah, you feel like a hypocrite,
Yeah.
exactly. I know what you
Um,
mean.
but yeah, so I think that I'd love to kind of get more into that, but I know that we also kind of want to talk a little more about the gaming stuff too. So, in terms of climbing high to higher elo, like how long did it take for you to get out of low elo, for example? Like your first season in season 4, like were you hard stuck silver? Did you get out of there pretty quick?
Yeah, so let's see. I don't think I'm someone who, I'll start by saying I don't think I'm someone who's particularly good at video games. I actually think, and even just like high APM and like,
Hmm.
doing things like that, I was pretty bad at that, and it was only through lots and lots of grinding and hard work that I was able to make me someone who I don't think is like kind of by default like very talented or good at games. Like I think I'm maybe average or slightly above average when it comes to like by average performance, like a new game I'll pick up. But I'm definitely like I don't think I'm anything close to like what like a lot of these other high elo players that will like get challenger after like their third season or something. I'm
Yeah.
nowhere close. It was only through lots of just like tons and tons of hours, tons of grinding that I was able to get to this point I'm at now. So that first season I was silver 4, and I think I made it actually. Wait. Let's see. No, I think I made it to gold my first season. I
Oh,
think I can.
nice.
I can even check my OPGG to confirm this. But yeah, I made it to gold my first season after a ton of grinding. And I remember being so happy about that because I really feel like I didn't deserve it, but I managed to do that. Um, and then let's see. The season after that, I think I may have been gold 2 seasons in a row. I actually can't remember, but I think I'll say to like summarize it basically, not to like spend too much time on this. I think I was basically climbing about one tier per season, roughly.
That's really good,
Uh,
actually. That's very consistent. That's not usual in my experience. Like I've been stuck in silver for 3 seasons. So,
I
uh,
mean, of course, it's like I spent so much time on League,
mhm.
and I think I almost honestly feel like I could have climbed faster or should have. Part of me thinks I should have climbed faster, but yeah, regardless, like I put in so much time, and that's why, yeah, I guess I was able to climb at a rate that is faster than some other players. Um, Granted, definitely still not the fastest, but yeah, so it's about like gold one season, plat the next season, and then, well, no, I mean, I think I wasn't like diamond by my third season. I think it was like my fourth season. But yeah,
Okay.
so it was like some kind of progression like that. But then once I hit diamond, it got a lot harder.
Oh yeah.
um,
Oh yeah.
I think what happened is I spent 2 seasons just in diamond. I couldn't get past like diamond 3. I think being a one trick, I started to hit a bit of a wall there about like how to carry the game past this point. I
Hmm.
feel like improve a lot to a like I had to be much better than other players in just like general
Hmm.
to like be able to beat them with a champion like Yi at that elo, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But took a little bit of time, I think, to like catch up in that regard. Like I feel like I had to play at like a higher level than the games I was in order to succeed.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, and I mean, of course, a lot of people already know this about Diamond that it's just like it can be harder to climb through that elo because there's a lot of other factors that kind of come into play that weren't as much of factors in the lower elos, which is things like meeting the same people every game, and like they know how you play, they know how you'll know how they play, and then like lots of I think ego and like kind of mental what's the word, just like I don't know, like a lot of toxic atmospheres. I guess I could go on and on, but there's a lot of things about Diamond I think that make it a unique elo. It's different from other elos. So I was definitely it took me a long time to even like scratch the surface of Beyond Diamond at first. And I think it was preseason 9. Yeah, preseason 9 is when I first, or maybe it was preseason 8. I actually can't remember. Preseason 8 is when I first broke out of Diamond and hit Grandmaster, and then since then I've hit Grandmaster at least at several points each season,
Hmm.
but I've never been able to maintain it. What always ends up happening is I want to keep grinding. I don't like to camp my elo and stuff like that. Even if I'm like at 300 LP or something, I was like, no, I just got to keep going. I got to keep running this momentum. And maybe I wonder if back then if I had stood up for 30 seconds between games, took breaks, maybe who knows, maybe it'd be very different for me. Right now, I wouldn't have tilted back to Diamond, which is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kept grinding, and games didn't go well, and then I'd always fall back down. And I never was able to finish in Grandmaster. So I think my OPGG says something like, I think it's 4 seasons diamond or something. It says ending 4 seasons diamond, even though I hit Grandmaster season 8, 9, 10.
That's
And
incredible though, being a one trick on a champion that's widely considered unplayable, like at high elo. Like I ask pros all the time, like, I mean, Master Yi is a nightmare in low elo, right? But he's like, yeah, but you can't play him in high elo unless you're funneling. Basically, that's the only way
right,
that
that's
high
kind of
elo players play Yi. Like, you have to funnel him. But that's crazy though, and I understand the challenge of even getting to a certain goal and then sitting there almost doesn't feel right, right? Because then you basically are saying, I'm not going to play anymore because I've hit
yeah.
my goal.
Imagine
Yeah. Yeah.
being like, oh, I'm gonna just enjoy the benefit I already got and just like not strive for any more improvement, just like kind of sit comfy in my
Yeah.
throne. Like, no, 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 I'm not about that. I
That's
want to keep
awesome though.
pushing.
That's awesome though. Because eventually, when you actually are able to finish a season in Grandmaster playing your champ and like actually earning that right, it's gonna feel so much better than, oh, I got there in week 3 and then I played one game a week so I wouldn't degrade and you know.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gonna feel much more rewarding to do it this way, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you can't play Yi, what else do you play?
So, oh yeah, and I guess I forgot to even mention this in my introduction when I first opened up like the whole conversation. I'm the USC jungler.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh,
Uh,
we didn't even talk about the
I
collegiate scene yet. Okay, yeah. We got to get into that.
So yeah, I'm the USC jungler, which means I don't get to play Master Yi in the vast majority of those games. Um, and so before I started collegiate, yeah, I played like some other stuff. I mean, I in like what's the word? In spirit. That sounds corny. Basically, like I wanted to just be a Yi one trick. I wasn't interested in learning other champs, but I was kind of forced to like get good at other things to maintain the elo I'm in, right? Because Yika's gonna get banned a lot. I get target banned all the time after I have a few games. The day they know I'm in queue, and they'll start banning me out. So then I play stuff like, again, I still can pull out the Lee Sin sometimes. I still got the bases from my early silver days, gold days.
You can
Uh,
insec and.
yeah, I can do all that stuff.
All
I
right.
mean, depends on the day. Sometimes I'm slower than others, but like
Yeah.
I learned all those mechanics back then, and I can still do them now. But again, I don't pull out Lee Sin very often. It's definitely not my go-to pick. I think things like Olaf are things I play a lot.
Oh, Olaf's
Um,
horrible right now. He's just so
yeah, Olaf
broken.
is just disgusting, and
Yeah.
I think his playstyle translates well for like someone who's a Yi main. Lots of right clicking, lots of healing, lots of attacking fast, true damage, spamming Q. You press R and run in. It's like actually a lot of similarities,
Yeah.
but he's way more viable of a jungler in Hyela. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think easy to transition as a Yi main to playing Olaf, and he's been probably my most comfort, like most go-to, you could say, comfort pick. Also playing stuff like Karthus, power farming, something I know how to do well. And let's see what else. I mean, I've been playing a lot of stuff lately because the collegiate scene has kind of forced me to like learn all
Yeah.
these other champs like Nidalee and
Graves.
Pantheon. Graves, yeah. Oh, I really am not that good at Graves, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to learn how to play Graves better. I don't know why.
Graves is weird. His like even his positioning when you're farming, right? Like you can't
Yeah,
stand in front of your camp and just hit. You have to go off to the side and like angle.
yeah,
It's
no,
so
that's
weird.
not
Like,
weird. Like, I'm learning
yeah.
it, but yeah. And Udyr, I've also been playing
Oh
more
yeah.
competitive
Oh yeah.
lately. He's been emerging as a viable competitive pick,
It's
which has been
hilarious.
fun for me because he translates well with E skills again, just right clicking and
Do,
running around.
do you watch a lot of like LCS, LEC?
Um, I don't. I would like to, but again, it's like I just feel like I don't have as much time to do that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm more interested usually if I'm like thinking about league or interested in doing league stuff. I want to grind, I just
Yeah.
want to play the game. But I really enjoy watching LEC, LCS, LCK especially, and LPL, all
Yeah.
that. Whenever I get the chance, and especially now that I've been involved in collegiate this year, I've been watching it more.
What's
But
it
yeah,
like? Yeah. What's it like going from like solo queue grind to jumping onto an organized team now?
yeah. Oh man, it's hard because I was it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Um, being a solo queue player that just one tricks Master Yi and doesn't really talk to his teammates that much. Like,
Yeah.
I would want there to be more teamwork in solo queue, but especially as a Yi main, it feels like a lot of people don't like you already just from the start.
Right.
They already have like kind of stereotypes about who you are, like as a player, even as a person, right? I was talking about that. They're like surprised to hear that I'm a Yi main because it doesn't match up with what they think Yi mains are like. And they just have like, these preconceptions like you're gonna do this certain thing, you're not gonna help my lane ever, you're gonna farm all game and try to 1v9, and you're probably gonna either int or solo carry the game. It's
Yeah.
like just not one thing.
He
They've
feels like
always-
he feels like a coin flip in champ select.
yeah, and I mean, there's some validity to that. He's
Yeah.
in some ways a bit of a coin flip champion, but yeah, but beyond that, like basically what I'm trying to say is, they don't like Yi so much, and so my solo queue experience was not so much. I feel like there's a lack of teamwork in that solo queue experience, even more so than your average solo queue player. As a Yi main, there's less teamwork than I would want.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I
That's
mean,
a basic, yeah, idea.
I'm a support main slash jungle main, and I think one of the hard. I've actually started. I got some coaching from another grandmaster player who's really helped me understand the role of support and actually helping the jungler. So I've been
Oh,
playing
who was it?
Midori,
Midori?
Midori. Yeah, so he's an ADC,
Oh,
but
Midorima.
Midorima. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know.
So he was super helpful, and he's like, "Hey, I'll give you a coaching session." He's like, "You should learn how to play Pantheon because you're gonna
Yeah.
basically be." He's like, "You're gonna be the second jungler, and you're just gonna invade their jungle and help your jungler kill everybody." And it's been
He was on the money with that.
and it's a super fun playstyle. It's just sometimes I feel like I'm inting because my ADC, I'm a low elo. My ADC's like, "What are you doing? Like, come back to lane." I'm like, "Dude,
I know.
do you not see me ganking 3 other people?" And like, like
That is the struggle.
we got every single objective. Like, come on. Like, yes, I'm 7-7, but we're winning the game. So, but yeah. So I think that going from and that's actually my biggest criticism of Riot is that they haven't created an environment for team-based league, despite them pushing Team League as like their product basically. I really, really am excited to see how the collegiate scene develops, and how you guys are gonna hopefully do in the future in terms of maybe even feeding into pro teams. Has pro play ever been a consideration at all for you?
Right. So, like I said, I from a very early point in life knew I kind of wanted a one-trick medicine.
Yeah.
If we're gonna keep using this terminology.
Yeah, yeah,
And I as I started getting to league, I thought like, oh wow, it would be so fun to like, get involved with like academy or try to go for LCS or something.
hmm
Not saying that I even feel like I could if I tried. Like, I think if I really, really tried, I think I probably could. But I think, again, like I said, I'm not someone who thinks is like naturally good at video games, and it would take a lot of work. But it still is fun to think about. And I've often thought, and now that I'm here in LA too,
yeah,
I've like got to kind of drive by the like LCS studio and stuff, and just
yeah.
like seeing that in person now is like, wow, it's like it would be so fun to do that. I would really, really enjoy it if I could just like do it for like a year or something. But alas, it's just not something that really fits into my life. The
It's
way
it's a
things are.
major detour for sure.
It would be a major detour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the people who are in that system have either not obviously dropped out of college or dropped out of high school even
Right.
to pursue
Very
that.
different direction.
Yeah, and it has to become your full-time job for as long as you're in it. And then for you, I mean, obviously you're in a track that is very time sensitive. You don't just take a year off of med school and come back. It's like you're just so behind if you do that.
We're
Um,
spending a third of our life just preparing for it. So it's like,
yeah, it's a
which I-
massive investment you're just kind of putting aside. Um, but I think it's cool that at least you're getting the experience of being able to play on a team. And how is USC's team this year?
Yeah, so yeah, collegiate has been like a nice way to kind of get a taste of this without throwing off my entire life course. And USC's team right now, I'd say, I think we're like, so I don't know much about the competitive scene, like what the average elo of like the average team is or anything like
Mhm.
that. I think our like tier average is like mid diamond.
Okay.
So I think I'd say we're about middle of the road in terms of like the Western Conference, like whatever our
Yeah.
like group of teams are. I'm not even sure.
Well, because I was
But,
watching like UCI play yesterday, and Mike Young is obviously ex pro challenger level like jungler. And I'm like,
oh,
I just
I didn't know.
yeah, watching him smurf was just like,
Oh my
my
God,
God,
yeah.
he had like a 15-1 game on Talia. Like,
Yeah, sounds about right. I didn't even know he was playing for collegiate. Yikes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you don't have to face them.
I think it's his first year.
anytime soon.
So, but I think
Oh,
that's a really interesting
yeah.
thing about collegiate is that there are a lot of teams who do have former pros because they're like, hey, either pro didn't work out for me or I want to pursue my actual career in life now. So they end up going back to college. And I think a lot of them are taking advantage of colleges offering scholarships now for league players. And they're like,
UCI
hey,
is one of those.
yeah, it's like, I'm a really good league player. I can also get my school paid for. This sounds like a win-win. So I think it's really exciting. In college, I used to actually play competitive paintball, which is something, it's another underground sport nobody really knows. But the fun thing is, we would play we would play nationally. It was a club sport, so I was on a team with 2 actual professional paintball players, and we were really good. But I was like new, I was like they have ranks as well, so I was D4, playing with these
D4 in paintball.
but D4 is low, so it's like
Oh,
the normal NCAA
oh
ranks,
wait, you're
like
talking about
D4,
D4
D3, D1,
Oh,
yeah, D1 being the
okay, I know what
best,
you're talking
yeah.
about. I thought it was like Diamond 4.
No, no, no.
Like in paintball, I was like, oh, they have that. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I know about the D4 through 1 system. Yeah.
But it was super fun because we actually, it says we actually won a national championship, and I was on that team. I was the captain of the team at that time. But I wasn't
Damn,
great, I was like
congrats.
D3 by this point. But it was also, it was awesome being able to play with pros, right, and learn from pros on this team, and they're actually invested in having you actually improve. So you're getting like one-on-one coaching, and I think it's such a cool system in esports now that you're going to have access to like really high level players like yourself, being able to, like, if I was coming into USC's team or whatever and I'm like, let's say D4, right, and barely got into diamond, but hey, I made the cut, I made the tryouts, like, to be able to play on a team with much higher level players regularly, I think would also help you improve as a player so much more than the solo queue grind by yourself trying to learn online. So I think it's really cool. I think it's good for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm
um
totally on the same page, and I'm really excited to see esports grow more. Like
yeah.
hearing about things like UCI really starting to expand their esports program and take it like much more seriously. And I know Maryville University is like way ahead of the game. Also,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
their like main thing almost is esports or something.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know that much about it, but I know it's a big deal there. And yeah, it's really exciting to see all these programs grow and become more of like a big deal, and just the world in general starting to acknowledge esports more as legitimate and like a real sport.
Yeah.
That's really cool for me to see, and I really do hope to like see it become really just like any other sport, like a football team, soccer team. It's gonna
Yeah.
be the esports team.
That's the way it's
I'm waiting
going.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
US Wars asked the question, what role do you main in league and which champ? So I think that's aimed at me because obviously we've talked a lot about your role in champ. You're a jungler.
US
You
Wars
main?
is actually one of my viewers.
Oh,
For
okay.
live stream. They're probably asking you, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a support main. I was going to switch. Okay, I do this every year. So I've been playing League for 3 years, and every year I'm like, I'm gonna jungle main because it's easier to carry that way. And I play jungle for about a month, and I actually do fairly well in jungle. I think I have over a 50% win rate. But it's just so mind numbing for me in terms of like how much toxicity gets thrown at
Oh
you
my gosh, yeah.
that I can never do it for more than a month. So I started this season, same thing. I'm like, I'm gonna be a jungle main. I was maining Hecarim, and I had like a 56% win rate, but it was just so toxic. And the games that we lost, I felt so frustrated because I felt like it's always my fault, right? Like
They
I
always say jungle diff.
I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god, I didn't carry hard enough. And it's like, but then when I watch the VOD or I look back on the stats, I'm like, man, I had 3 losing lanes. I invaded their jungle 3 times. I took 2 of the objectives off of their hand. Like, there's nothing more I could have realistically done.
What do you really want from you?
And then I'm just getting flamed because in the team fight I'm trying to 1v5 and you just can't do it anymore. And yeah, and then they're like, oh, you're inting. I'm like, all right, well, so I've gone back to support again, and I'm actually climbing much faster now as a support because I think in this meta support is actually really good. Like,
I've gone that sense too.
yeah, roaming supports. If you have so my duo that I play with usually is a jungler, and if I know that my jungle's doing something, I can roam and support them. We can
That's a
really,
good duo, jungle sub.
yeah, we can really influence the whole map. We pick 1 or 2 lanes to just crush and pick our carries, and like it's much easier that way. So I'm the champs I main. I'm kind of a Swain one trick actually, but I'm trying to get away from that because Swain is just not great. He's good, but he's not great. Like he's not.
You're talking about support
Yeah,
team, right?
yeah. Because I can 1v2 bot lane pretty easily once I get an item. And then I can roam really easily with his W. I'm just shooting it across the map, like to basically slow for my mid laner or whatever, my jungler. If my jungler invades, I can W the enemy jungler, and then he's slowed, and my jungler just kills him. But I'm trying to switch now. So I'm actually I think this week or two, because the meta changes every 2 weeks basically. I'm playing a lot of Pantheon and Seraphine, and I think they're just Seraphine's Pantheon's probably the most fun to play, but Seraphine's just absolutely broken. Like.
Yeah.
Last night I played I think 3 games of Pantheon, and I did fairly well, but I lost 3 of them, and I was like, you know what, I'm just kind of tilted, so I switched to Seraphine and went like 5-0 and 16, and it was just like, all right, I feel good, I'm gonna go to bed. She's just so broken.
That's usually a good strategy. Like if you're someone who is not a one trick like me, you actually play multiple champs, and like you have a bad streak with one champ, just switch to another champ, and it's like kind of starting afresh. Like talk about mental resets. That's one way to do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a support main. I don't know much about Swain support. I actually don't. I feel like I rarely see Swain period, let alone Swain support.
In high elo, it's not very playable because
Yeah,
it's all about hitting your hook, your E, And in high elo, they actually sidestep. So it's like,
And of course, it's gonna be harder to hit in high elo, yeah. And
yeah,
like, I guess if you can't hit your E as Swain, your viability as a support pick goes down a lot. So
yeah,
I could see that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick though. I don't meet many people who main Swain, let alone Swain support. But yeah, I think Pantheon is like a very like even if you main Pantheon and got really good at him, you can take him top, you can take him mid, you can take
Yep,
him jungle.
yep.
Pantheon is probably the most contested pick in the competitive scene right now. I can say at least
Yeah.
from my collegiate perspective. I don't know
No,
about
he definitely,
LCS.
even in LCS, he's first ban, I think, every single game in the last two series. Right now, they're doing the lock in tournament. That's, repping Cloud9. They're playing in finals today.
For sure,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, I've seen Pantheon first banned every single game
Every single
across
game.
the
Okay,
across the board. Yeah.
I didn't know it was that bad. I knew he was
Yeah.
like a contested pick even LCS, but I didn't know he was like up there that much. But yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like in collegiate too, he's the most contested pick because of his versatility. Yeah, mainly his just flex potential and also his just like and regardless of the lane he goes to, he's gonna be really good in any of
Yeah.
those roles.
Yeah.
So if you were to like get really good at Pantheon support, you can start taking him top lane, mid lane,
Yep.
jungle. And yeah, it's feel like it's just such a good champion to one trick. I
It's
mean, I
it's
guess,
so funny actually because actually last year I created an alt account. It's called Achilles, and it's literally just it's a Pantheon one trick account. Like that's all I play on that account. I have like 3 skins, yeah. But
it's a great game. You already know what I'm talking about.
yeah, he's just fun. He's fun. I've also been really into Greek mythology my whole life, so that champ itself is just cool to me. Like I like the way he plays, and he is like a
Yeah, I feel that. Same thing
yeah.
with me and Yi. It's like I just really want to learn this champ and play him a lot because I just love the theme and
I,
everything.
I really actually like E too, but I feel like I'm just terrible with him. Like I've had actually my only penta ever in an actual Summoner's Rift game was with Yi. I mean, of course,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of quadras with Swain. I can't get a penta. It's just so much harder. But it's just also Yi is very feast or famine. If you get behind, like 2 levels early on, you're just it feels so bad. Like you can't do
Back to that
anything.
conflict thing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with what you're saying there for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
interesting. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that like I think in high elo you start to like try to figure out ways to make him less coin flippy.
Hmm.
But yeah, he is at the end of the day kind of like a coin flip champion by design.
Yeah, I think that the thing I like most about League though is like you're saying it's not just about learning your champion, but every game is different. Learning all the matchups, learning, your jungle is actually really interesting because of the pathing, right? Like the idea of learning pathing is so crazy, and I think that's also partially why I got kind of disillusioned playing jungle is that I can see the learning curve on being a good jungler being so much higher than playing any other role, because and I've experienced this where I feel like I'm at a very comfortable like silver to gold level. I played games in gold and I'm totally comfortable doing that as a support. As a jungler, I get either I feel comfortable or I'm getting completely abused. I'll see this like obviously I don't know if they're Smurf or they're just good at jungling, but a Warwick, for example, will just outpath me everywhere. And it feels like you can't do anything. It's like it's almost like chess. The other jungler is just beating you at the mental game. Everywhere you're trying to go, he's already there. Like, and it feels more one-on-one than some of the other roles where it's almost like, okay, I can't do anything now. And as a jungler, it feels really bad because then your whole team is blaming you. Like, why are you getting killed in your own jungle? I'm like, I can't do anything. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting role. It's like in some ways you have a ton of impact influence over the game, and in other ways you don't. So
Mhm.
it's I don't know. It's like sometimes I feel like jungle solo piece. Sometimes I feel like it's just a useless role. I don't know. It's like always somewhere in between. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean,
know
that's
what
a cool thing. League is always evolving too. That's also why it's fun. It's weird that a game that, I mean, essentially when you queue in, you have 5-on-5. It's never ever a different game in terms of what's going to happen on that game on the Rift, right? They don't change things like the Dragon Pit except between seasons, right? But it feels like every single game plays out differently. And so it's almost like chess in that sense. You line up all your pieces and it's the exact same game, but it can go a billion different ways. And it's all about like
Exactly.
those little in-game decisions and all that. But I really enjoy it. So cool. Does anyone in chat have any other questions for Wuju? Anything you want to ask about med school, about League, about collegiate? I'm super interested in the collegiate scene. Like I said, I'm glad that it's getting more attention. I know it's been broadcast a lot on like TV and stuff now, and some of the other channels. But I do think that it's really really exciting that once colleges and they start taking it more seriously, I think the next thing that follows is normalization across culture, just standard culture. Like society will start accepting it.
Mm.
But okay, obviously, so Maya asks, obviously you're a year one med student. Is there anything you may want to specialize in? Oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, I think I like touched on this a little
yeah.
bit earlier, but yeah, right now I'm interested in primary care, so it'll probably be something like family medicine or being a med peds physician. Yeah, basically like the doctors that are like kind of first line, front line responders.
Have
Um,
you thought about doing medicine in esports?
I actually have not, and that is an interesting idea. I guess I wonder like what would that look like for? I mean, of course, gamers and esports players, they see primary care physicians like everyone else. I mean, yeah, I guess I haven't even thought about that, but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, there's one I know. So GamerDoc, Lindsay Migliori. She's basically probably the best known physician in esports. There's Dr. Levi Harrison. But I think that there's always room. Obviously, it's a growing industry, and the fact that I only know of two people doing it is like it's open, and that's kind of why I was, PT too. Like PT in esports is very, very new. There's not a lot of people doing it, which is why I'm going so hard into it. But also, it's just something I'm passionate about, and I think that a lot of gamers have been done a disservice in their careers because they've gotten healthcare advice from people who aren't gamers. And it's not to say that they've gotten bad advice, but if you're a pro player and the first piece of advice your physician gives you when you have wrist pain or something is, oh, why don't you stop playing for 6 weeks?
Oh yeah, they tell
Like
all.
you can't say that to them. That's like telling a marathon, like a professional marathon runner, why don't you just not run for a while? Like, like
Exactly, yeah.
it's the same thing. They wouldn't do that though if you're a football player, right? They wouldn't tell you, oh yeah, stop training, because they would assume that's part of your career. But I think
Yeah.
esports is still on that infancy stage of awareness where the medical professionals. There's a lot of I think in my opinion, there's a lot of condensation. Like there's people look down on it. They're like, you're playing a video game. It's not that serious, and it's
Definitely, I
like,
experience it all the time. Even my medical school career, people are always like telling me, I don't know if you should be doing that video game stuff. Like you should get serious about medical school. And I don't think they recognize how
no.
much like a part of my life it is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. My fiance actually hates gaming, which is really funny because I love it, and she's always like, "Oh, why
you
do you?"
know exactly how I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like, "Why do you game?" So it's like we've had to come up with compromises. Like, okay, I will game at these specific times, and it is work related somewhat. I'm trying to make it part of my career, but I also have to understand that I can't game like I did in high school, where I would play for like 8 hours a day and like not eat and sleep, and
Right. We gotta find the balance.
yeah,
Right.
it's all about creating better habits, right? Aret asked, do you play games besides League when you want to break? So I'll direct that at you first. Do you play other games?
Yeah. So let's see. I play. Let's see. So I play Osu.
Oh
As
man,
like
that is insane. That's like
yeah,
DDR on
yeah.
crack.
I know, yeah, it's so fun, and I love those kind of rhythm games, and it's something I originally picked up as a way to just improve APM in League, and it
Mhm, mhm.
like undoubtedly has tangibly improved my APM from the point when I like started playing it and like actually started to get good at, like I don't know if I should say I'm good at it, but like once I started to invest more time in it, I felt like I very quickly noticed my APM improve. Like
Oh.
it was like very tangible. So I don't know. Yeah, you might get like wrist pain. You might like break your arm or break your hand or something. But like it's not just only something that's really fun, but I think it's so good for League players. So I'll throw that out there. I also enjoy playing Minecraft
Okay.
with my girlfriend and some of my little brother. Let's see. Beyond that, I don't really play many other games like really consistently at all. League is pretty much the only game I play consistently. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's actually very common in most League players specifically, because League is just that game that consumes everything about your thoughts. Like
Yeah.
I turn my computer on if I have like 2 or 3 hours I want to play some games. Like my first thought is always, well, why don't I try a ranked game in League first, like see how my
Yeah, I
day's
know.
gonna go. It's like because if you want that like rush of like, hey, I gotta win. Let's start out the day with a win.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and
Going
League
for that high.
really really reinforces that more than almost any other game. But I do think having those break games is really important. So Minecraft is a great one because you can de-stress. It's a very low stress game. Like it's not.
It is. It's a great
Yeah.
de-tilter,
Yeah, I play games like RPGs or like Empire Builder, so I'll play like Rome Total War, Baldur's Gate. Those kind of games don't require me to stress at all. It's just kind of like thinking, and for me, that kind of helps me reset. But yeah, I think it's really good that gamers have. You can't go from like League. Oh, I'm like, I'm tilted in League. I'm gonna switch to Valorant. And then,
Oh, yeah.
and then you go into another hyper competitive game. You get tilted there, and then you're like, I guess I'm gonna jump to like CS:GO or something. No, you're like,
Yeah.
you're gonna kill your mental. But Yeah. Gamer to athlete asks, how much do you love USC fight on?
How much do I love USC? Oh yeah, I just love like the Trojan mascot. I think that's such a cool
Yes.
mascot. I
Yeah.
went to Berkeley for undergrad, and I always thought like I don't know if you know about like Berkeley's mascot,
The whole
Oscar the
Pac-12, yeah,
yeah,
rivalry,
like
yeah, the bear.
yeah, there's that all that nonsense, and like like the mascot for Berkeley. This is just totally random, by the way. It kind of this you could say this is tangential, but basically Berkeley's mascot is Oski the bear. And I don't know if you can Google it right now. Oski the bear. It's the most creepy looking mascot you've ever seen. So I always thought that was really weird, and it's nice to have like Trojan as a mascot too. I think that's cool. So I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I've
And
been.
LA in general.
I was gonna say, when you live in LA, you basically are forced to either root for USC or UCLA. And for me, the UCLA colors are always hideous. Like I hate that like sky baby blue with gold. It's like, it just doesn't look good. The cardinal and the gold is always my thing. So it's like, you know, it's always a big fan of the USC Trojans. I was super excited that I got accepted there for PT school. I went to college in Long Beach, and they didn't have a football team, and I've always been a big fan of football. So watching collegiate football, I was always like, well, it's USC in LA, right? But yeah, it's a great program. It's very, very expensive, but I think that, you know, they have a reputation for a reason. And they're always on the cutting edge of trying to push the boundaries, especially in medicine. I think that their medical program is really good. Have you met Dr. Lance yet? He's a physical therapist. He will be teaching your guys' biomechanics and like some of the anatomy labs. Yeah.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm gonna meet him soon, I guess.
Okay. If you see Dr. Lance, tell him Jordan said hi. He was one of my mentors and CIs when I was in school for 16 weeks. So I know him really, really well. We're good friends actually. Now that I'm graduated, we can like go out and drink beers and stuff on the weekends. But
sure. Wait, Dr. Lance, what's his first name?
Justin.
Justin Lance. Okay, I'll look out for Dr.
He's probably the only physical therapist that will lecture for you guys.
Okay.
But yeah, he's heavily he created the spine fellowship at USC for PTs. But yeah, look out for him. Cool. But yeah. Thank you so much for jumping in today. We went a little bit over, but it was a great conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for me too. And also sorry if I like was talking too long.
No,
that's like a habit I have. Sometimes I run my mouth.
Hey, that's the best people to interview. You want people to actually talk.
True.
So
you're welcome.
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And at some point now, if you ever want to jump on some league, let me know. You can help carry. I'm down. I just want to learn. Like actually, that's the best thing is like talking to high elo players. Like I just love picking up those little tidbits of like, hey, like why did you ward here? I'm like, I don't know. I watched a video on YouTube. I thought I was supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, funny thing about that is I love to teach. So
yeah.
If you love to learn, I love to teach. We can make it work sometime.
All right, let's do it. Cool. Well, thank you so much again. I'm gonna hop off and we'll switch the stream over to a game. But thank you and good luck this semester and getting through the rest of that program.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Take care. See ya.
See you around.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys for all tuning in for that. That was a really good conversation with him. Super interesting. Medical student, collegiate league player, and also obviously former, sometimes grandmaster solo queue player. Cool. That was really, really good. I think what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to run to the restroom and then I'm going to actually hop on some league. If anyone wants to watch, I will be back in 1 minute.